Hi everybody, Adam here. Welcome back to our Lego room. A really amazing HA Bricks locomotive that we're taking a look at here today. We've got the HA Bricks NS 1607 Dutch Railways Electric Locomotive. This impressive model is done at 1/45th scale. And you can see the designers here. We got Gerbrand and Erwin. They've done a really amazing job on this locomotive. The locomotive is made up of 1,642 Lego and custom elements. The locomotive is 50 studs long and 8 studs wide. And the kit also included a number of printed parts as well. Really impressive to see the printed parts. I'll show you all the different ones on the locomotive in a moment, but just one of the sort of examples of the high quality kits that HA Bricks releases. You can see the box here, excellent photography work, and look to the box overall. A great picture there of the finished build. And if we flip this box around to the other side, you can see the awesome wireframe version of or image of the locomotive as well. Love seeing these wireframes, gives you a new perspective on the model and, gives you a little insight into just all the complexities that go into this particular locomotive. A lot of parts, a lot of interesting techniques, and it really comes together in an amazing looking finished model. Now, other examples of the high quality kits that HA Bricks puts out, in addition to the box, the printed parts that we talked about, inside the box, the bricks for this model were all sorted out into numbered bags. So as you're going through the instructions, it was really easy to, find out which parts you needed for a particular portion of the model. Really appreciate that. It's a nice touch and something that just makes the HA Bricks kits that much more enjoyable to build. In addition to that, really like the instruction manual that they put together. Really high quality, nice printing. And I like in particular the nice history section they have in the front of the instruction manual, going through and talking about the NS 1607. I've mentioned this before, but I really appreciate these history sections. Give some interesting perspective on where this train or this locomotive was used, how it was used, which can really help educate some of the ways that you might put it to work on your own layout, or, give you some ideas of other models to work on. So, I always appreciate reading these history sections, and I think it's a really nice inclusion in the instruction manual. Now, let's take a look at the finished model. So here we have the finished NS 1607 Dutch Railways Electric Locomotive. A really amazing locomotive model. One of the first things that really catches my eye, now looking at the model and when I was putting it together, is just how large it is. 8 studs wide, pretty common, but 50 studs long. Really, really long locomotive. Really impressive how much detail they've managed to pack into the model. And it's going to be interesting to see how it looks and performs as we get it onto our layout and start putting it through its paces. Shouldn't have any trouble with our curves or any part of our layout in particular, but I just think it's going to be really cool to see this moving around and, seeing just how many train cars it can pull. So really impressed by the overall look of the model, and that size definitely makes it eye-catching. Other details that I really appreciate, We talked about the printed bricks. You can see the symbols and numbers and text along the sides of the car here. Love the fact that they've gone and printed all of these details onto the bricks. Just like, as I said, an extra level of quality and attention to detail, which I think looks awesome on the finished kit here. And just a lot of great details to look at up close with all of those printed bricks on there. The other thing that you'll really notice is the top of the train has a ton of great detail work here, a lot of tubing and various parts to capture the electric sort of pickup points for the powering of this locomotive. Also really like this element here on the top. Just so many interesting parts to take in as you look at the finished model. And, I'm not Dutch. I've not actually seen this locomotive in real life, but it's just a perfect example of some of the amazing locomotives that can be found around the world, and is one of the things that I really appreciate about Lego trains and model railroading in general, is getting to learn about these amazing locomotives from around the world, and then have cool models of them like this one here that we can have in our collection and run around our layout. Really impressive to see, and going to be an excellent addition to our collection. Very unique and distinct, and looking forward, like I said, to having it out on the layout and putting it through its paces. Another interesting part of the locomotive is the end caps here. You can see the interesting nose detail that it has on the locomotive. I think they've done some interesting things here to recreate the shape of this sort of nose area of the locomotive. And this was actually a pretty difficult build to put together. Not impossible. The instructions were pretty clear on everything, but you'll notice there's a number of parts where, to get the shape that they wanted for the locomotive, you didn't push in the pieces all the way. Sometimes pieces were left a little loose to get the proper shape that was desired for the locomotive, which, is just different, I would say, as somebody who builds normally, and you want all those really strong connection points. There was a lot of interesting techniques here to get some of these rounded and different shapes on the locomotive. So that was tricky and interesting from my perspective. Interesting to see how they sort of pushed the boundaries on some of the part connections here to get the shape that they wanted. And, how that translated into, sort of recreating the texture that you see on the outside of the model, and some of these interesting panels. Just, really interesting things here. You can see, like we've got this section on the top of the roof here that's sticking out. We've got this nice textured chunk on the side of the train here that sticks out a little bit from the rest of that side panel. Just really subtle details that, help capture the realistic view of the real world model. But, in Lego, you don't normally see things necessarily constructed this way. So like I said, it was a tough build. There was a lot of parts, a lot of fiddling to get things to hook up right in terms of creating the shape that was desired. But, when you get to the end of the model, I think the end of the build, I think it was all worth it in the end, and it's resulted in a really amazing looking locomotive that should be a lot of fun to both run around the layout and have on display in the layout, because of how impressive it looks and how distinct it is compared to some of the other trains that we have in our collection. One other thing that's worth noting in here, this particular model, I bought the version of it that came with powered up components. So we've got a battery pack hub in the middle, and there's actually 2 motors inside that run the wheels underneath. So like I said, I'm curious to put this through its paces. I think it'll be interesting to see how fast it can go, how it handles the curves in the layout, how many cars it can pull. You'll notice each end of the locomotive came with magnetic couplers. We'll keep those as the magnetic couplers for now. And we've got a number of train cars that have the magnetic couplers. So we should be able to, give this locomotive a really good test and see just how many cars it's able to pull, and how fast it's able to pull them, and how with that load it's able to maneuver some of the different elements in our layout. Should be a really interesting sort of experiment, and definitely keep an eye out for that video on the channel. We'll do that as a separate video because I expect that there's going to be some interesting things that we find, and that we'll want to run a number of different experiments. So like I said, keep an eye out for that video. I think it should be really cool to see, but was impressed that the kit came with the powered up components. It's always nice to get the components to put a kit together without having to pick them up yourself. And I was interested, it was interesting to see with those components, the instructions included details on how to set up a controller config for them in the powered up app. So, about halfway through the build, when the motors and everything went in, I got that all set up and did a test run of the app and the motors. Everything was working fine at that point. So that should be good. Not too worried about how that'll perform. It's just going to be more a question of, what are the actual capabilities of this finished model? Just how much power are we going to get? How will it move around the layout? And, an important thing for, not necessarily for here in the Lego room, but when we take this out to shows, I'm also curious what the battery life will be. The battery pack on the inside of the model, it's accessible, but it's not super easy to get out. I imagine it's going to be a little bit of work to change the batteries. So it'll be interesting to see just how long we can get on each battery pack. How much run time we have with that battery pack, and how that'll translate into usage at shows for this particular locomotive. But overall, really happy with the NS1607. I think that this was an amazing model that HA Bricks put out. Definitely happy to have this in our collection. As I said, very unique. Love the fact that this is from a railway that we don't have represented currently in our collection. So I think that's cool. Very distinct and cool looking locomotive. And, something different in terms of, this is our first 2-motor locomotive. So I think that'll be an interesting test as well. But definitely, I would say the most complicated HA Bricks kit that I've put together. But, you can't argue with the end results. I think what we've got here is a really cool looking model that I'm looking forward to putting through its paces on the layout. Now, if you have not checked out the HA Bricks website, highly recommend that you do. I'll include a link below. They regularly put up pre-orders for new kits that they are working on. We've got a number of their awesome kits in our collection. There's still a few more that we'll be building in the coming weeks. But I've been happy with all the different kits and models that we have picked up from them. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, please make sure to do so that you don't miss out on any of our upcoming videos. Like I mentioned, we will have a video soon where we put this locomotive through its paces around our layout. It will be interesting to see not only how it performs on its own, but as we start to add additional train cars for it to pull, I'm curious to see just how much power this locomotive will have. And that concludes our look at the H.A. Bricks NS 1607 Dutch Railways Electric Locomotive. An amazing kit that is going to look awesome in our collection and around our layout. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you again soon. Take care. Bye.